Clay, in the year of our Lord 2020, can Joe Biden become Jonathan Archer in the way that we need him to be? We need him to be a uniter. We need him to say platitudes to both sides. We need him to get shit-faced on Andorian ale. We need all of it. Do you think Joe Biden can become Jonathan Archer in 2020?
Much like Jonathan Archer, he was the one that was specifically asked for by one side to come and bring us together.
That's right.
I do.
We don't have an
like
unemotional Vulcan side, though. Unfortunately, we've got two fired up Andorian teams going at each other.
Yeah. It's the blue Andorians and the red Andorians.
The blue wall. Biden brought back the blue wall and the blue antenna.
Yeah, I do like that this episode keeps it similarly topical as the last episode did, but just like 15 years too late, right, when you have Jonathan Archer stepping in to bring peace to the Middle Eastern quadrant.
Mm-hmm. I know. This is a timeless episode, I guess. We're going to be talking about ceasefire.
People are always fighting about stuff, you know?
That's right.
What side of the bread you put your butter on? It's a tale as old as time.
Never mind. I was thinking something else about how bread always lands butter side down, but I couldn't find a way to tie that into an analogy. We'll go with it anyway. It's a slippery situation. Ceasefire is the episode.
All it needs to say.
Ceasefire is the episode that we're going to be talking about, and we're going to take a break. We're going to play a clip from the episode, and then we'll come back and break it down.
Obviously, I'm here at the request of the Andorians. Shran believes he can trust me. I don't intend to prove him wrong by going down there with a Vulcan officer in tow. If you insist I bring a Vulcan along, I'll take the one I know I can trust.
Ceasefire is the 15th episode of the second season. We're getting up there. That's surprising number to see, 15. It aired on February 12th.
Only 10 more weeks until we're done with season 2.
First aired on February 12th, 2003. It is the third of 7 in the Vulcan versus Andoria arc, which is my favorite WrestleMania runner. Written by Chris Black, directed by David Straighten. In-universe date is unknown, but it's 2152 or thereabouts.
Well, if you're going by pro wrestling rules, after the 7th episode, they settle their beef and they become a tag team. So technically that works, right? They start the Federation.
It is, yeah. The Federation tag team is my favorite. Outside of the New Age Outlaws, it's my second favorite tag team. Ceasefire. In this episode, Archer is called in to mediate a territorial dispute between the Vulcans and the Andorians. It's everything you thought DS9 was going to be, Clay.
It sure is.
As I said, this is the third of 7 of the Vulcan and Andorian episodes. Honestly, I'm surprised it's only the third. I feel like we've had 10 of these episodes, and they're all remarkably the same as each other. They all feel very, very similar. After the high of Stigma, this one feels more like a letdown. I don't think this is a good episode. I don't think it's a terrible episode, but I think it's definitely a letdown from Stigma in that the one thing I like about this is that I do like the early goings of humans serving as a mediator in this group of races that they've got going on. Outside of that, I just think that like Enterprise is the most templatey of the Star Trek shows we've seen so far. And this one feels really templatey. It's just like you plug in the names, you got a little bit of action in there, sprinkle in some Andorians and Vulcans, sprinkle in all the problems that I have with those races to this point as defined by Enterprise, and here you go. You got Ceasefire.
Yeah, it's surprisingly similar to the last ones they've done, except for one notable, I only can assume, producer's note, which is Brannon, if you're gonna bring back those fucking blue guys, can we have one with a rack, just like a nice rack we can put on display.
Brannon, I was reading this National Geographic. Have you ever heard of a blue-footed booby? I was thinking.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Could you imagine?
That's pretty much it. They brought back Susie Plaxton, who's like 6'7", full woman, and they put some blue paint on her and unbuttoned her top 2 buttons on her blouse and said, "You are going to be the villain of this episode." And she said, "Okay."
Has she been in other episodes?
She was in TNG. She's most well known as Kalar, who's Worf's mother of Alexander in TNG for a couple episodes.
Okay.
And she's also has another couple roles in other Star Treks that I can't name off the top. She's in the Schizoid Man episode, I think. But she's a returning Star Trek actress. I mean, we can, it's typical Enterprise. The resolution here where Shran is like, how am I supposed to believe what's true? And T'Pol goes, did you ever think that maybe someone on your side wasn't on your side? And he goes, they betrayed me. And it's just so quick of a resolution and so stupid. There's no evidence that Shran is given to, this is like Tarah, I think her name is Tarah or something, is the betrayer. He just kind of buys into it. And that's really jumping to the end of things. But I'll ask you this question. The problem with the Vulcan and Andorian storyline is that the Vulcans are confusingly characterized in this series, and the Andorians are not characterized in this series. So when you combine them, there's no real ground where you can stand, where you understand anything about the complexities of their arrangement besides the fact that the Vulcans are kind of dicks in this early universe, and it's always that way. But similarly, the Andorians, where they were played as thugs early on, don't really seem to have much of a characteristic at all anymore, because Shran is no longer the hopped up, I'm going to do whatever it takes to fight back. He's now like, we need to have a ceasefire. We need to have peace between us. And I don't understand the characterization of that race anymore at this point, if that's the way it's going to be. So you have confusing Vulcans who don't make any sense, and then Andorians who are underdeveloped fighting each other.
Yeah. I mean, what is this? You said the fourth episode? Third?
I think it's the third. It says it's the third, yeah.
Having little to no prior experience with the Andorians, I don't know what they're about at all after 3 episodes of Andorian stuff. Like, they just seem to be angry at the Vulcans about something. I don't know. But yeah, as far as characterization goes, I don't know anything outside of they're fighting with the Vulcans.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for me to really, I mean, thankfully this whole storyline is being carried on the back of Jeffrey Combs.
It is, yeah. He's pulling a lot of weight in here.
Yeah, because even like the guy they got playing Shreve, what the hell's the Vulcan guy's name?
Soval, the worst Vulcan of all time, but we'll get into Soval.
He's terrible.
He's terrible.
Awful. He's not really bringing any heat, and T'Pol isn't really doing anything in this episode, and so it's basically Shran and his second in command there. And I get that they're fighting over this planet, but I don't understand why. They never really talk about that very much. Yep. If they did, I must have been like staring at the floor or something.
Well, I guess the Andorians got there first and terraformed it, and the Vulcans said that they were too close to Vulcan, so they chased them off of it. And I think that's the entire conflict between the two of them. Yeah. Yeah.
So that doesn't tell me anything about why they're fighting each other or outside of that immediate thing. But that being said, I actually thought this was fairly solid, but I thought it was solid for the same reasons a lot of the other ones are solid, which is like, when you really get down to it, it's a pretty simple story that is just told really efficiently and solidly made. And it's got Jeffrey Combs in there, swinging for the fence every scene he's in.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's possible you can see his veins through all of that blue makeup, but you can.
We haven't talked about the, to interrupt, but just a small point. I don't think I've mentioned the Andorian antenna in this, I guess, are controlled by puppeteers, which is interesting. They're like hand controlled, and it's kind of neat when you're in kind of a scene where you stop paying attention to the Andorians and what they're saying, you pay attention to the antenna and how they're reacting to things. It's kind of a neat little touch that they do it.
Could you imagine just sitting on those? Sorry. That's pretty gross.
I interrupted you though, but it's a nice touch where in a modern TV show, I don't think Discovery even has the Andorian antenna move, but you could see it easily going into like the realm of CGI.
Nothing on their faces move.
Yeah, nothing. It's a little overdone.
It's like Master Shake after he got bad plastic surgery in South America from Aqua Teen.
I interrupted you.
I was more or less done. It's the same thing. For a diplomacy episode, I actually didn't mind it. It's a little on the nose where they basically have another one of those scenes where Archer's like, if we could just get together in some sort of, I don't know, Federation.
Right. Yeah.
So it's
the scene where he's talking to Phlox early on, saying it's maybe we shouldn't be out here chasing comets. Maybe we should be creating some kind of alliance.
What's another word? Alliance? No, that's not the word I'm looking for. On the tip of my tongue. I don't know what it is.
He's like, alliance is very similar to those other 3 alien militant species that we ran into. They were all the alliance, so we should go with something else.
We've run into enough civil and other wars going on, which are between the alliance and the empires, that we know which side we should take. Yeah, I thought it was all right. I found it. I actually thought the action stuff didn't really seem as out of place as it usually does.
Yeah.
I thought the shooting down the shuttlecraft was a nice plot turn, and I legitimately wasn't sure who shot them down for a while.
Yeah.
Until they because I thought they were going to try and maybe do like a little pull one over on you, but then I was like, well, no, they're not going to position the Vulcans into trying to frame the Andorians, which would probably jumpstart a galactic war. So it's most likely just the tall lady.
I wouldn't see it outside of the Vulcans in this series, though, really. I mean, it would be surprising, but I could see a way that it's done. The problem is that Soval is on the shuttle, and that seems to be the problem with that.
And I thought the stuff with Trip was great too. With Trip in the captain's chair, I thought was awesome.
Although he did have that episode a couple episodes ago where he was completely incompetent, and now he's just got balls of steel, and he's just like, put me right in between those sons of bitches.
Yeah, he picked up Best of Both Worlds Part 1, and has been reading that and learning that since the last time. Yeah, but no, I thought that stuff was good, and I thought to compare it to how they handle things in Discovery, I thought positioning Enterprise in the line of fire of their 2 ships worked infinitely better in this than it did in Discovery, where Michael just depends on Saru to know to fly the ship in between the firing line, and like bullshit. Trip positioning Enterprise between them like that and was quite a statement to be made. I thought it was very effective.
It feels like a Picard thing to do, It feels pretty Star Trek-y. I think that there's the thing that I like about this episode is it does feel thematically appropriate, and like it's constructed in a way where I feel this is a step in the path towards a Federation type arrangement between them. So I felt it all fit together, and Trip's decision to sort of put the Enterprise in danger to stop these ships from shooting each other is good. I like Archer's approach to being the mediator, and he's divorced from both of them in a way that he can get through and negotiate a deal between things. I like seeing the Vulcan and Andorian ships. I like the Vulcan ships. I have never talked about them.
Are the Vulcan ships the ones with like the big circle?
The circle, yeah.
Yeah, that's a weird design.
And I thought that I agree that the action is fine. It has, it's like typical Enterprise action where the scene where Archer sneaks up on the sniper who's in the tower is like 30 minutes of watching Archer climb up the ladder and then punch the guy in the face and come back down.
The thing I was chuckling about with that is, you watch him shuffle around for 25 minutes. So I'm assuming like he's going a fair distance. And then after he jumps both of them, he's like, to Paul, hey, stop firing. Like she's like, like 25 feet away.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, he doesn't. And at the start of it, he's like, it's only a kilometer away. That's no distance whatsoever. You could like throw a rock and be halfway there, I think, at that point. So it's funny that it takes them so long to get quite a short distance across.
Sorry, it reminded me of a great gag from, I can't remember if they do it in Naked Gun or if it's explicitly from Police Squad. They probably do it again in one of the Naked Gun movies, where they do the traditional firing and someone's returning fire on you, and they're showing both sides of the gunfight. Yeah. And then they show a wide shot and they're just like hunkered behind 2 trash cans that are like 5 feet away from each other.
On the opposite sides of the same mailbox or something, just kind of looking over the top of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good gag.
Yeah, it's so the action here is fine. It just feels it's super just stock, really. It's like Enterprise just has to have these action sequences. It makes sense here. I don't even think they're bad, really, for what they are. It's just there's never anything going on during the action sequence. There's never a plot that Archer's like, I've got to get this parcel down the road before the bomb explodes. There's never it's never anything outside of just Archer he's got to bring Soval down the road
before the
Andorians get there
and they start the war or whatever. But
there's no character story inside of that. The only thing that happens here,
all moving a football. Yeah.
The thing that happens here, and that I don't even know if it's really even important enough, is that Soval and T'Pol have that talk with each other, which only serves to highlight. And I know that I complain about the same things in Enterprise, but it's because it's such a stock templatey show where the same problems happen. The Vulcans just don't make any sense, and Soval, who's new to this episode but not new to the series, is the worst Vulcan I've ever seen. He's awful. Where the scene with, like, the entire thing of watching Soval, where he's talking to Archer and he's getting mad. He's always yelling. He's always mad about things. Soval's always mad. And so you're looking at him for the first half of the episode and you're going, like, is he just portraying the Vulcans the way that the showrunners and writers want the Vulcans to be portrayed? And I'm just like not being given enough information to accept him as the real version of Vulcans at this point. But then when he has this conversation with T'Pol's like, I feel kind of happy that I'm serving on, I feel kind of prideful I'm serving on Enterprise, or whatever she says. And he says, pride, that's an emotion. You shouldn't have that. It's like, Soval, you're the most emotional fucking guy in this entire episode. Why are you now lecturing T'Pol about what she's done? It doesn't make any sense, and his performance is terrible as a Vulcan. It's just terrible as a Vulcan. It completely undermines everything to the point where you think that there's something else going on in the story that's not being stated because of how weird his performance is.
Yeah, he I don't think he has ever watched Star Trek before.
Yeah, but it's possible.
He's not even trying to do even like a stock Vulcan
robot. No, he's not even trying to do like bad robot Vulcan. Like he must be looking at the guys the Vulcans who stand to his back right and left all the time in every single scene. He must be like, what are these fucking guys are terrible actors. Like there's no range. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, he's like, yeah, I got it. Pointy ears, live long and proper, whatever. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. And it's interesting because he even calls T'Pol out for losing her Vulcan accent.
Yes.
or getting a human accent, which is, I don't even know what that is, but yeah, they have these interesting scenes.
T'Pol's like, hey, I'm walking here.
I don't know what you're talking about, Soval. It's, what was I going to say?
Soval, the executioner.
He's so much not a traditional Vulcan, yet they do call out, like the Andorians have a nice line, where I think it's what's the woman's name? Tarah, I think. Yeah. Tarah. It's a very Star Trek name.
Mm-hmm. I think there's an H on the end to not make it.
Okay. Where she says, I think it's her who says, the Vulcans, they don't have a conscience, they just logic, which is a nice little bit of like shit talking about how they perceive them and stuff. And it's like, okay, yeah, if you're going by the general way that Vulcans are presented, sure, but you're not really getting that from these Vulcans. These Vulcans seem to have a lot of other stuff happening internally that kind of contradict that.
Right. Like, I just think that the way that the Vulcans are drawn here, where the Andorians have no characterization to them whatsoever, but you could see Enterprise trying to do something where the extreme cold-hearted logic of Vulcan society is indifferent to other races, right? Like that they're going to do what they see as the most rational, best outcome for them, and that includes kicking the Andorians off this planet or whatever because they see them as a threat. But it comes across as an emotional response to the Andorians instead of just no, this is like, we've thought about it, we did all the calculations, and it's like, these guys have got to go. And I think that there's space for Enterprise to develop the Vulcans as the Vulcans develop a like compassion along with their logic system that becomes a kind of thing that they develop over the course of the series or the course of leading up to TOS. Because I think like Spock and them they have like a sort of humanist approach to life. They have a very like They see things as like life is kind of sacred and special and things like that, but they're still logical about it. But there's a kindness to them at the same time. These Vulcans just seem angry about everything. Right. And it really undermines their argument where I could see the Vulcans having a point and the Andorians being the fiery emotion. It's the two sides of the human heart or the human heart and mind. And they represent that, and Archer's supposed to be the mediator, but it never comes across that way in any of their episodes.
Yeah, and in this one too, when you've got this, first of all, I thought the negotiation scene was hilarious, where they just cut to Shran going, "Well, we're never going to be satisfied until we own this moon, but I guess that's what a compromise is. All right, well, I guess we're done here.
Let's have a drink, gentlemen."
I don't even think they really explain what the compromise was. It's just that they're both unhappy about it.
Yep, and
like you've got this opportunity to have the Vulcans lean into the logic thing and be like, okay, well, what's the discussion here? It's the Vulcans are acting, their defense would be by logically it makes sense for us to do X, Y, and Z. And then you have the Andorians fire back where it's like, well, it's not all about logic. What about us? We're just trying to survive, that kind of shit.
Right.
But they never get to any of that because the negotiation scene is about 15 seconds long.
Yes.
And also because they don't portray the Vulcans as acting in that manner. I've never gotten the sense from this show up to this point that the Vulcans are doing anything out of logic as much as like they just don't like the humans and they just don't like the Andorians.
Right. Yeah.
Which is not a logical response.
Yeah, they seem very xenophobic. Like all their actions are xenophobic, but at the same time they're reaching out to other species and trying to develop them. There's
even if that was the case, I kind of wish they would say it just so someone could refute it and be like, they are xenophobic because it is not logical to take in other species when they have to, some bullshit like that. So then you can have someone like Archer be like, that's ridiculous. That's a self-destructive way of living if you're cutting yourself off because you think it's blah 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 blah.
Yeah, and they've hinted at it before. I think there was some episode in the first season where T'Pol, the Vulcans have a kind of opinion against exploration at this point. Like Archer's kind of unique, and humans are unique to them because they're going out and exploring. And T'Pol has a line about the Vulcans don't see the gains to be made from exploration like that, and I think that's a good way for the Vulcans to go. It's just,
sorry. Finish your.
Well, no, it's really just that they're so convoluted about what they're supposed to be thinking and how they're supposed to be acting, and no one says anything about how they're supposed to be. They've had the lines about that they respect. Or that they like logic and like everything is about the rational actions that they have to take, but they just don't lay out why they do the things that they do in a logical way, as you're saying. It's just they don't like they're spying on the Andorians all the time, which could be logical. You could make an argument that the Vulcans think this is a necessary thing to do. The show, it's semi-discovery-esque. It's like the show has this idea, but it doesn't want to really explore what that idea means as to like, they're like, yeah, the Vulcans don't trust the Andorians. And you go, well, why don't they trust it? It doesn't matter. Just have them shut down the spy thing at the end of the episode and we'll move on. It's kind of unsatisfying episodes like that.
Yeah, and I also find that they have kind of locked themselves into this incongruent depiction of the Vulcans because the genesis of the show takes its steps off of it. What the fuck am I trying to say?
The butter always lands on the floor.
Yeah, no. The series itself, like the core of the series, jumps off of the continuity canon idea that the Vulcans came to Earth and were like, hey, awesome, you guys just achieved warp speed, we're here to like help you out and whatnot.
Right. But welcome to the club.
But at every turn the Vulcans are like fucking humans.
Right. Yeah.
And even T'Pol even brings it up, and she's like, wasn't the point of us reaching out to the humans in order to help better them and blah blah blah? And he's like, fucking was, I guess. Like they're locked into this genesis of the story, but the Vulcans that they're showing are not don't line up with any of that stuff.
Right. They've never given a good reason as to why they stick with them. And Soval doesn't seem to know what the reason is as to why you stick with the humans. And it's, as I said, they're reaching out to help races like the humans. And the ending of First Contact kind of makes sense there. It's like the Vulcans see the species that's warp capable. They go and make contact. And the nice sequence at the end of First Contact is the Vulcans having a drink with Zephyr Cochrane, who just starts dancing to the music. So humans are just at that stage, and the Vulcans just sit there and aren't sure what to do. But
cut to Will Arnett in Vulcan form saying, we made a huge mistake.
The Vulcans here, if they are that Will Arnett character, just it seems like they're just tagging along with Archer and the Enterprise because the story of the show demands that they do. Exactly. There's not really a good reason why they continue to be there, and they threaten to always pull T'Pol away and stuff like that. Yeah. I do feel that T'Pol's developing well outside of it.
Yeah. Oh, I think she's great. She continues to be really good. And they can't also. They're tagging along just because the show says that they have to, but they can't be flat out. Fellow protagonists. They have to be antagonistic in order to generate drama. Yeah. But they never get into like what the source of that antagonism is.
Right.
So you just have these Vulcans who are antagonistic towards everybody and not really well defined other than that, except for T'Pol. In and of itself, outside of the pre-existing continuity, it doesn't work that badly, because you've got the Vulcans who are testy with the humans and don't really approve of what they're doing, but they've got a Vulcan on the ship. So as she becomes more accustomed to the humans, then that conflict between her and the other Vulcans kind of brews. That stuff is fine. Like that, in theory, that works perfectly fine. It's just that the setup for all of it isn't really structurally sound. Where it could have been, but they just never really committed to it either way.
I know we haven't seen it in a while, but it feels similar to the execution of the Temporal Cold War, in that it felt like they had the idea, but they weren't really sure what was going on with that idea. They just knew that they're like, we'll start it there and we'll see what happens, and we'll probably, we'll flesh it out as it comes along. And so what happened with the Cold War is you've had 3 Cold War episodes where no one knows what the Cold War is about, and it's just the Daniel showing up going like, the Cold War, and Archer goes, oh shit, and the Vulcans are the same thing.
I'm waiting for the Last Jedi episode of Enterprise where someone finally steps in and goes like, yeah, all that stuff, it's not real. Anyway, that's over. What's real is this stuff, because it feels, I think we talked about this at the time. It has a similar feel to it where it's like one writer came in, dropped this concept and was like, all right, see you guys. And just like left them to figure it out. And they just kept putting it at the back of the list.
Yeah.
And they never bothered fleshing it out, so nobody knows what's going on. So they're kind of stuck with this sort of vague idea.
Yeah, it's the same with the Vulcans. That they should be, the testiness and the antagonism towards each other makes sense dramatically because you need them to be at each other's necks a little bit. But they've never grounded where that comes from, why Archer feels particularly annoyed by it. Like, I understand why Archer feels bad about it because he brings it up constantly, but you've never experienced it really. Like, there's never been a scene where you're like, oh, that's why Archer's, flipping out about this stuff, and that's why they insulted his father or whatever. And on T'Pol's side, it feels satisfying that she's rebelling against these Vulcans, but on some level, I feel it's just because I don't like these Vulcans, so I'd rather T'Pol not like them as well, and therefore, when she comes to my side, I feel okay with it. But I'm not really convinced that she's learned anything that I would say is substantial for herself outside of adopting human characteristics. It's not like Soval is the father figure to her that I guess he kind of is supposed to be, but it doesn't come across that way where she's rebelling against him or anything personal like that. I feel like there's a lot of connections to be made. The way that Admiral we always thought would be a good semi-father figure to Archer that they haven't really done, and Soval would be the version of that to T'Pol. It's just not coming together that way.
Yeah, and they set her up as being more integral to this episode than she is, because I think up through the first meeting with the Andorians, her stuff is great. Like even that kind of argument they have about bringing a Vulcan down, and Archer has to kind of explain why she's there and what she's done and stuff like that. That stuff is nice. They set her up as a good counterpoint to Soval, but they never really follow that through with anything. Like, I feel like they're missing the opportunity to have her do something that would show Soval that why he's wrong about her.
The positives of humanity.
Yeah, or why he's wrong even about the Andorians or something.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's just all Archer gratuitous ass kicking.
Right. Lamely telling Shran that, some people on your side aren't really on your side. And he goes, oh, no kidding. How many, we should be tracking things like this, but like the over-under, what would you peg the over-under for? Number of scenes that have ended with a Vulcan walking past T'Pol and T'Pol goes, ugh, rolls her eyes at Archer. It must have happened like 50 times in the show by this point. Whenever Soval walks past, T'Pol just kind of raises her eyebrows and can't believe that's what he said.
It's like in any other sitcom, anytime a character's mother-in-law is the scene.
Right.
Like,
boy, these guys logical. Yeah.
Festivus? What's that? Sounds made up.
I don't think there's much else to this one, really. I like it thematically. The Andorians are just like, I would talk about the Andorians, but there's not really a lot to say about them. Nice little guest appearance from the captain of the Andorian ship at the end that's talking to Trip is the actor who played the Kevin Vorta, who's in Rocks and Shoals, the sort of shifty Vulcan, which is a nice callback. So you have both Wayun and Kevin in this one. But that's how
they
like
should have done that thing where they look at each other and they both say at the same time, "Aren't you dead?"
The Andorians don't have much going on.
My favorite joke from Hot Shots Part 2 that I didn't get until years later is when they're doing the send up of Apocalypse Now. And they've got Charlie Sheen doing his inner monologue, and his inner monologue gets interrupted by Martin Sheen's inner monologue. And then they look at each other, and as they pass, they point at each other and say, "I loved you" in Wall Street. Yeah. It's an amazing deep cut of a joke.
The joke that always
continue about Star Trek.
The joke that always sticks with me from Part 2 is I think it is Part 2. Is that the one where he rescues Rowan Atkinson and has to like carry him out of the...
Yes. Yes.
But he picks him up and he's like running through the jungle with him as Rambo, and it's Mr. Bean like sort of over his shoulder. They ADR in this line of Rowan Atkinson going, "You're so sweaty." It just sticks with me.
My absolute favorite joke from that movie is when they're flying in and they've got everybody in the ship, and he's reading Great Expectations, and so he goes, "What are you reading?" "Great Expectations." And he says, "How is it?" He goes, "It's not what I hoped." Great joke.
The Abram Zucker has or whatever his
right before they completely lost all credibility.
Right, yeah, that's their last greatest hits. I don't have anything. Do you have anything to say about the Andorians, or are we done? Really, like I do. The ending scene is too short, but I do like the ending scene. I wish that the episode cut out half of the fighting and turned the ending scene into an additional 5 minutes, and they actually had Soval, Shran, and Archer talk to each other.
Yeah.
Because I think that would be interesting at that point, and they don't really do it.
You've built up your entire episode about that confrontation, and you just never do it.
Yeah.
It's
especially knowing where this has to go, right? You know they have to form the Federation. It would be nice to have, if you're the showrunner of this, I imagine you go, like Chris Black wrote this. You're like, "Chris, you got like 7 minutes of scene here. Like, write a great, nuanced, semi-antagonistic scene between these three. Like, we need to see clearly where they're all coming from, what they all see about each other, and at the same time, give a glimmer of hope about how there can be unity between the three of them towards the end of this." Mm-hmm. They semi-do the unity thing just by drinking alcohol with each other. It's like... It's just a shortcut, really, and I'd much rather have a nuanced conversation between Soval and Shran where they are getting the best of each other, and Archer's there to witness it or something. It just feels there's potential left on the table.
Yeah, it's strange that the running theme in this show for us is we kind of wish they would spend more time on the boring stuff.
Yeah,
because whether it's an episode where we just want to see them do whatever the job is they have to do unhindered by Deus Ex space ice or whatever.
Yep.
Or if it's this where it's like, yeah, I would actually be interested in seeing some of the diplomatic talks between these, because especially I think the difference is in a show like this, you're a prequel, right? So lean into it. This is one thing where I don't give a shit where the phase cannons came from or whatever. I don't give a crap about that. But if you're going to get into the politics of the creation of the Federation, now's the time to do it.
Yeah. No, it definitely isn't. I mean, it's just, it's semi-boring diplomacy stuff, but I think about it as in terms of, no, it doesn't have to be. I think of it just in terms of it needs to have the kind of crackle that the opening diner scene has in Reservoir Dogs. Not that it needs to be Reservoir Dogs, the Star Trek episode, but you need to have
all my favorite Andorians: Toby Wong, Toby Chu, motherfucking Charlie Chan. That's what you want?
I mean, they're drinking. There could be a whole tip discussion about, you don't tip? There's like Andorians don't tip.
Archer to explain to them who Madonna was and what Like a Virgin was as a song, and then explain what it's about.
I suppose my point is that scene is divorced from what goes on in Reservoir Dogs, right? But it shows you all the characters. They're talking about something that's semi-interesting and kind of funny to talk about, but it shows you who the characters are in relationship to each other, how they're all set up, what the sort of like dynamics between everybody are. Mm-hmm. And they don't even have to be talking in this episode about the treaty or anything boring, but have them talk about something, like have them talk about like growing up on how Andoria was different from growing up on Vulcan is growing up on Earth, or have them connect about something that feels real and not just, well, we banged out that contract in 37 minutes. How about we have a drink and then we call it a day? That just feels hokey and unbelievable in a lot of ways.
Brannon, there's too much talking in this episode. You got to cut it down. There's only two things I want to see, and it ain't these people talking. You know what I'm talking about.
Brandon, do you know what Like a Virgin is actually really about? I wouldn't have thought that Archer was a John.
I just learned this. I have to tell somebody.
Every Rick Berman script has Jonathan Archer, comma, a real John Holmes motherfucker, comma, description. Enters the sickbay. I guess we're done with Ceasefire. We'll take a break there. We will play a clip from the episode. We'll come back, read some patron thoughts, and give our final thoughts about Ceasefire.
I believe someone wants to find a compromise as a solution that neither side is happy with.
In that case, these talks have been extremely successful.
I consider any negotiation that averts war to be a success.
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for supporting the show. If you're interested in supporting the show, the best way to do so is go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile. A couple dollars a month and you get extra stuff like extra podcasts. This month we're going to be talking about Inception, which is number 7 on Rotten Tomatoes 150 greatest sci-fi movies of all time, the Christopher Nolan movie, and a DS9 revisit. I think we're doing Life Support, which is the Burial Death episode that Clay missed the first time around. So
fucking great.
You get to see cardboard melt under the intense pressure. And as always,
I'm really glad to head back to Deep Space Nine to watch a fucking Burial episode.
I think I watched one with the patrons though, just on the Amazon stream as I was doing something else. Mm-hmm. It's very different. We weren't even watching great DS9 episodes, but when you go back to DS9, it's just such a DS9 just compared to Enterprise. And I know Enterprise is early, maybe something will change, but DS9 feels full in some way. Like when you go into it, it feels like a world, where Enterprise feels like sets, like you go there and it's like, this feels pretty empty in a lot of ways. Like there's nothing really going on. The characters aren't doing anything. It's a lot of running around on concrete sets or whatever, but I think it'll be interesting, if not a good episode. Anyway, special thank you to the Captain Tier supporters, who always get a special shout out at this point. I don't know what happened to my brain there. I just fried out for a second. Christian Pouch, Tark Latif, Chris Tinsley, Mike Burnett, Sean Cardinal Doomsday, Joint Mango, Matt Cutler, Ben Douglas, Kyle Barrett, Sam McCuster, Nick Sergey, Bradley Killens, Matthew Ross, Rune Venler, Nathan Elliott, Eric Johnson, Andrew Chilog, Grim Santo, Poindexter G, Dwayne Hackett, Paul Roscoe, Jordan Cooper, Derek Zajac, Kevin Reyes, Vault 13 Hero, Stefan Minton, Nick the Rat, Darth Mosk, HH28, Matt Curry 6, Jacob 123, Mike Harris, Jakey's Gamer, Patrick Seba, Captain Brazen, Kevin Lowry, Eric Sanjuan, Corey Martin, William Scheisler, Zane Major, Soylent Blue, and Groppler John. Thank you very much for supporting the show at patreon.com/the Penske File.
Did you say Trapper John, like from MASH?
Did I say Trapper? It's Groppler. Groppler John Zorn, I think, is the full name. But Patreon always cuts off the name.
If we can get more patrons who are former cast members from MASH, that would be great.
It would be, yeah. They've still got those residual checks coming in. Just give me some of that.
Is Jamie Farr still alive? We could probably get him pretty cheap.
And we'll go to patron comments right now. Just checking this is still recording. It is. Patron comments, if you're a patron at the $5 and up level, you can leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes and we read them. Matt Ross says, Ceasefire, a more interesting story of how the Andorians and Vulcans hate each other, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Kashmir, and any other number of our own conflicts need a cheery Boy Scout of Archer, shooting in darkness, etc. It's funny that Trip can decide bold moves here, considering his weakness 7 episodes ago, but overall, the last scene is the only one that really matters. The rest is pointless. 2 antenna out of 5. Point Extra G says, Jeffrey Combs and Susie Plaxton in the same episode? That's some Star Trek royalty there. It's a decent enough episode, but there was never any doubt where the story is going. Humans will bring everyone together. How optimistic. It's also weird that pink skin is a term specific to humans.
I was thinking the same thing. It's like it's not their skin is not any different really than the Vulcans. Although the Vulcans have, I guess they kind of have more of like an olive.
They're like, yeah, olive yellow or something. They have a little bit of a sickly hue to them. Then obviously they haven't run into Mayweather because he doesn't exist on the show, but they would have a hard time describing him that way.
Right.
And pink skin just sounds really erotic. It's especially with their antenna just like waving around in Archer's face as he calls him pink skin. It's just his. Yes. All right, pink skin. Although I was thinking about it, the Andorians probably have different shades of blue that we don't notice, right?
That's true. Yeah.
You know, we're probably like, they're all blue. They look the same as us. A latte librarian says, I see Andorians also suffer from excess cleavage in female military uniforms. Trip seems to be coming into his own as a backup captain. Overall, a not disappointing episode. 3 pink skins out of 5. Thank you. Nick the Rat says,
go back and throw the pink skin around.
That's right. Dad. That's my favorite scene from The Room. Nick the Rat says, Tarah makes my pink-skinned antenna stand at attention. What are those Andorian antennas for anyway? Hearing or smelling? Any episode of Jeffrey Combs is a winner for me. He's so small and cute, just like the Enterprise threatening to open fire if any ship goes towards the planet. Adorable. 4 out of 5.
That's what they were missing. For all of Trip's bluster, they should have cut back to the Vulcan guy going, is he fucking serious?
Right.
we could destroy these guys. It would be one shot and it's done.
There's 6 of us.
They have they're still shooting torpedoes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and they've had that in episodes where they call them warships, but they all look the same. They had to the one where they had to ferry T'Pol's mentor, like they had to run away from those guys who were saying, how fast does your ship go? They were trying to get to a Vulcan ship for protection, so obviously it's stronger than them. Kyle Barrett says, ceasefire. Last season, Shran, is it Shran? I'll call him Shran. Shran broke into a monastery, punched some monks in the face, and tried to kill Archer. So why in this episode is he all about peaceful negotiating and the titular ceasefire? The episode is bog standard Trek fare of a most unsurprising sequacious fashion. I think he mistyped fashion there, trying to be incredible with sequacious, but it's yet fairly watchable. And it's neat to see Archer begin Starfleet's role as intergalactic mediators, even though we never see the final negotiations. Soval and T'Pol's brief chat once Archer finally fucks off is by far the best scene. Although, I don't know what Nigel Tufnell type ship Trip is up to when he says the warp reactor is running at 120% efficiency. Surely it's impossible to go over 100%, and if it does go to 120, just make that the new 100. I give this 80% out of 150%.
Well, it's that the thing is he says it's running at 110, and then T'Pol says it's graded for 120.
Right.
Which, yeah, I don't know what that means.
Captain Brazen says, ceasefire. Andorians and Vulcans fighting over a planetoid. Shran needing Archer's help makes Soval annoyed. The Enterprise attempts to interfere, but couldn't they just share some beer? Archer's TOS-style fight caps the end in the war they avoid. I always fuck up his poems, I think. I just can't get... I read them first, and they're better than I'm reading them. So thank you, Captain Brazen, for the effort. I'm just fucking it up.
Do you think someone...
I read them like limericks. I don't know if they're supposed to be limericks.
There once was a man from Andor.
His antenna were filled with candor.
Was someone from Discovery listening to this show, and they were like, what if we have the crew start doing haikus at dinner?
Oh, yeah, maybe.
I'll take credit for that. Or
well, yeah, Captain Brazen, we'll pass along our MASH residuals and give them to you at that point.
Yeah.
He gives it a solid 4. Honestly, couldn't they all just get along by making some mixed drinks, sharing hard liquor, or getting really high? Evidently not out of 5s. So 2 4s out of 5 for this episode, which is high. You guys have been high and drinking. I'm going to give this...
It seems like it swings... A lot of these last few have swung high or low for people. It's either like a 4 or a 2.
Oh, really? Yeah, I haven't noticed, or I can't remember, but I do remember schisms recently. This one's... I'm surprised this one has a schism like that. I'm going to give it a 2, I think. And, it's not bad. It's just... It's really undone by the fact that the Vulcans Andorians don't have characterization to them. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it's just kind of a bog standard Archer running through the city shooting phasers at people, and there's nothing else going on with it. If that last scene had been great, it's a 3, Mm-hmm. It doesn't have any of that. So I'm going to give it a 2.
I think I'm going to give it a 3 because I do think that stuff aside, it still works fairly well for the story that they are telling. Just from like a beat by beat standpoint, I thought it worked pretty well, and I found it for an episode that was about diplomacy. I wasn't falling asleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be better. I think they left a lot of good stuff on the table, as this show is wont to do. But
yeah,
I think it's right in the pocket of an Enterprise episode, which is. The story is simple and the execution is fine.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I know. It's that definitely is Enterprise to this point. I don't really have anything else to add on to that. It's would you say that you feel at the same time I don't feel and you can be honest, I suppose, just because I think it's more interesting. But like,
for once in my life, I will.
I don't feel trepidation booting up an Enterprise episode. I'm not like it. Discovery feels like more work to me than Enterprise to watch mm-hmm. it. Like when I put on Discovery, I'm never really happy that I have to sit down for 55 minutes and watch Discovery. Mm-hmm. Enterprise isn't at that point for me yet. Some of the episodes haven't been good. But I always feel like there's a possibility that they'll do something, even though it's been we've hit 45 episodes now where I haven't really seen a tremendous amount of potential come out of it. But it always it's not killing me yet. So I don't know how you feel about it.
I am the same, but I think on the opposite side of that pendulum swing, where throwing on Discovery, I am interested on a level of like, well, let's see what happens this time. Let's see where this ends up going.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Enterprise
has no surprises.
I more or less know what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily find that to be a plus.
Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense.
Some people, I'm sure it is, but as through a first watch through, looking at it from a critical standpoint, it's not really making my Andorian antenna.
Yeah, the antenna is flaccid here. Would you still say Dear Doctor is the best episode so far, or something come along? Yeah, probably. Yeah. The only other 4s I think are, maybe you gave a couple 4, but I
gave
Dead Stop was one with they find that station that's repairing the ship, and Mayweather mm-hmm. gets captured and turned into a computer. Mm-hmm. We liked that one, and then there was one other one. That Stigma was a 4 as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, Those are fine. I don't think there's anything wrong. I would probably still have Dear Doctor, and then Stigma might be my second favorite episode so far.
Have we not gone higher than a 4 at all?
You have. You gave Dear Doctor a 5.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's the only 5 I think you've given so far. I gave it a 4. And I only care about my rating. So that's it. Thank you for Ceasefire. And thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting the show at patreon.com/thepenskyfile if you are so inclined. And that's it. We'll be back with the next episode, which is Future Tense, which is, I assume, a play on past tense, which was a DS9 2-parter that we didn't like. But this one is Future Tense. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, we had a new Rotten Horror Picture Show come out last week where we covered the Spanish zombie movie Wreck. That's a fun one to check out. And this week we have a new Badass. We will be covering The Lion and the Unicorn and Showdown. 2 really interesting episodes. Lion and the Unicorn is, I can't confirm this. I think it's the first instance of Alfred having a backstory that he used to be in the British Secret Service.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, The Lion and the Unicorn is definitely very British.
Right.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the episode does not live up to that premise whatsoever. And Showdown is this really, like, it's the kind of thing that you can get away with, I guess, when you're 78 episodes into your show and it's going pretty well. It's a Ra's al Ghul framing device episode that is just a Jonah Hex episode. Batman is only in it to listen to Ra's al Ghul tell him a story about Jonah Hex in the 1800s. So it's a Western.
Right.
It's basically the same plot as the movie Wild Wild West, but it's just this really interesting thing where for an episode they were like, what if we just do a Western with Jonah Hex and Batman's not really in it?
Right. Yeah. Getting a little pushing boundaries in there towards the end of it. Because you guys must have like 4 episodes left of Badass at this point.
We have Badass episodes of season 3. We have 1, 2, 3. We got 4 left. Yeah.
Yep. Good. Check those out at thepenskyfile.com. And you can subscribe on all the usual stuff. YouTube's also there. We have Discovery continuing and Enterprise will continue. I don't think I have any other news, really. I guess I'll put it out there at this point. If anyone's interested in doing social media art for this as some sort of like portfolio thing, like I can pay a little bit, but like it would be up for it. I'm gauging interest in this. Just if someone has the time to spare 2 hours a week, maybe, to do something like that, let me know. And I'd be interested in discussing what the terms of that would be. It would be our own ceasefire contract negotiation.
We can pay you in the most valuable currency an up-and-coming artist could ever want. Exposure. I have tremendous exposure. I would like to expose myself to you as well if you want to take this job. But yeah, if anyone's interested in doing that, if you are trying to build a portfolio or something or whatever, or you want to just do it to hone your own artistic skill at making images and things, let me know. No pressure. I'll continue to do a shitty job myself if no one else wants to do it for me. So that's it. We'll be back with Future Tense is the next episode of Enterprise. Discovery continues. Everything's on thepenskyfile.com. And that's it. See you later.